Hello, welcome to Chimney Sweep University Training Series. Today's 1-hour lesson will focus on the NFPA 211, Level 2 and Level 3 chimney inspections. If this is a free version, then interactive questions, images, quizzing, and answers will be turned off. If this is a paid version for continuing education unit or certification requirements, then you will be in a full interactive version. For information of where to sign up for the premium version, go to chimneysweeps.com and find the section regarding training. Good luck, and enjoy your presentation.
All right, so you sent over some info on chimney inspections, and looks like you've really been digging into NFPA 211,
Yes,
the 2019 edition,
that's right.
which is the standard for chimneys, fireplaces, vents, and
All that good stuff.
yeah, all that good stuff.
Yeah.
And we're zeroing in on
Specifically, level 2 inspections.
level 2 inspections.
Yeah, we'll be focusing on what NFPA 211 has to say about those,
Okay.
especially in Chapter 15 and 8.15.4.
So to kick things off,
Yeah.
when do we actually need one of these level 2 inspections?
Okay.
Is this like an annual thing or?
Not quite annual. According to NFPA 211,
Okay.
a level 2 inspection comes into play in a few specific situations.
Okay.
First up, anytime you're replacing a fireplace or stove or the connector piece between them,
Uh-huh.
or adding a new appliance that uses the chimney.
So it's like a compatibility check.
Exactly.
Sure, the new and old parts.
Yeah, you wouldn't want a shiny new fireplace causing issues with a chimney.
Right.
It's seen a few decades.
Yeah, that makes sense.
The second situation is when a property is changing hands, like during a sale.
Makes sense. You want to make sure the chimney is safe and sound for the new owners.
Right.
Kind of like a clean bill of health for the house.
Exactly.
Now, you mentioned that level 2 inspections are a step up from a regular chimney sweep.
Right.
What makes them so special?
They go deeper, literally.
Oh.
Level 2 inspections involve specialized equipment like a video camera
Oh, wow.
to get a look inside the chimney.
Okay.
That way the inspector can spot any hidden damage or potential hazards that wouldn't be visible from the outside.
So you're saying it's like getting an X-ray for your chimney.
It is.
Okay, so we got the when covered. Now let's break down the what.
Okay.
What exactly happens during one of these level 2 inspections?
A level 2 inspection has 8 key steps.
Hey.
And each step is all about making sure your chimney is doing its job safely and effectively.
Okay, hit me with step 1.
First, the inspector will figure out what your chimney is made of.
Okay.
Is it masonry, like brick or stone, or is it metal?
Okay.
This is important because different materials have different weaknesses and require different kinds of care.
That makes sense.
Yeah,
You wouldn't expect a brick chimney to have the same problems as a metal one.
right.
So what's next on the checklist?
Step 2 is all about assessing the condition of those chimney walls.
Okay.
We're talking about looking for cracks, deterioration, or any missing mortar,
Ugh.
especially in those masonry chimneys.
Okay.
These issues could weaken the structure of the chimney or even create a fire hazard.
And I imagine that this is where that video camera really earns its keep, right?
Yes.
To get a good look at all those nooks and crannies.
You got it.
Okay.
The video inspection can reveal hidden cracks or damage that you never see from the outside.
Wow.
Now, steps 3 through 8 focus specifically on those prefabricated chimneys,
Okay.
the ones that are factory built.
Okay. So let's talk about those prefabricated systems.
Okay.
What's the first thing they'll look for?
Step 3 is checking for something called an attic insulation shield. Okay. This shield is crucial because it protects the insulation in your attic from the heat of the chimney.
Ah, I can see why that would be important.
Yeah,
Don't want your insulation turning into a fire hazard.
exactly.
So what about step 4?
Next up is step 4, which involves making sure that the shroud
Okay.
at the top of the chimney
Mm-hmm.
is compatible with your specific prefabricated chimney.
The shroud, that's that decorative part that sits on top, right?
Yes.
What's the big deal about compatibility?
It's all about making sure that the shroud is designed to work with your particular chimney.
Okay.
This is key for proper airflow and preventing dangerous situations like a chimney fire.
So even though it's a prefabricated system,
Yeah.
there's still room for error if things aren't matched up correctly.
Absolutely. And that brings us to step 5, which is all about support.
Okay.
The inspector will be checking to see if the prefabricated chimney has adequate support
Okay.
along its entire length.
Now, this is something I've always wondered about. What are some signs of poor support that a homeowner might be able to spot even without fancy equipment.
Keep an eye out for any leaning, bulging, or noticeable gaps between sections of the chimney.
Okay.
If you spot any of those, it's time to call in a pro.
Good to know what's up next on our 8-step checklist.
Step 6 focuses on the assembly of the prefabricated chimney.
Okay.
It's easy to assume that factory-built systems are always put together perfectly,
Right.
but mistakes can happen.
So the inspector is essentially double-checking the manufacturer's work.
Exactly. They're making sure all the parts are connected as they should be, which helps prevent leaks, blockages, or other problems down the line.
Okay, so no cutting corners, even with prefabricated systems. What's next on the inspection agenda?
Step 7 is all about clearances.
Okay.
The inspector will make sure that there's enough space between the chimney and anything that could burn.
This goes back to what we were talking about earlier with different chimney materials, right?
Yes.
I imagine the required clearance might change depending on what the chimney is made of.
You're absolutely right. Different materials transfer heat differently.
Right.
For instance, a masonry chimney might need less clearance than a metal one.
Makes sense. So it's not a one-size-fits-all rule.
Yeah.
When it comes to clearances. It depends on the specific setup of your chimney.
Right.
All right, we're on last step. Let's hear it.
Step 8 is all about the liner.
Okay.
Specifically, the inspector will be checking to make sure the liner is properly attached
Hi.
and sealed inside the prefabricated chimney.
And the liner is that inner layer that helps guide the smoke and gases up and out right.
You got it.
Okay. And a loose or damaged liner can really mess with the chimney's airflow. Plus, it can lead to a buildup of creosote, which is highly flammable.
Creosote, that's the sticky black stuff that can build up inside chimneys, right?
That's the one. It's a major fire hazard, so making sure that liner is in tip-top shape is absolutely crucial.
Wow, we've covered a lot of ground already, and it sounds like these level 2 inspections are incredibly thorough.
They are. Yeah.
It's all about peace of mind, knowing that your chimney is functioning safely and efficiently.
So far, we've talked about when these level 2 inspections are necessary.
Right.
And walked through each of the 8 steps involved. But I'm curious to dig a little deeper into why these steps are so important.
Okay.
And what they really tell us about the health of a chimney.
That's a great point. It's not just about ticking boxes on a checklist.
Right.
It's about understanding how each of these elements contributes to the overall safety and functionality of your chimney system.
Exactly. Let's unpack that a bit more after a quick break. Okay, so we've got the rundown of these 8 inspection steps.
Right.
But what does it all mean for a homeowner?
Sure.
How do these steps translate into real-world safety and peace of mind?
It's about understanding the why behind each check.
Okay.
Take the first 2 steps, checking the chimney material and its condition. Those are all about structural integrity,
Okay.
cracks, missing mortar deterioration. Yeah. Those things can compromise the entire chimney, making it unstable and potentially dangerous.
So it's not just about a chimney fire.
Right.
It's about the whole thing potentially falling apart.
Exactly. And that's where the visual inspection with the camera is so important.
Right.
It can reveal hidden issues that could lead to major problems down the road.
It makes you realize that a chimney is more than just a decorative element.
Right.
It's a critical part of your house's structure.
Absolutely. And then we move on to those prefabricated chimneys.
Okay.
Where the inspection focuses on proper installation and compatibility.
Okay.
Steps 3 and 4, checking for the insulation shield and verifying the shroud's compatibility, are all about fire prevention.
You mentioned earlier that a mismatched shroud could create a fire hazard.
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that a bit?
Sure. The shroud plays a key role in regulating airflow.
Okay.
If it's not designed for your specific type of prefabricated chimney, it can restrict airflow, leading to a buildup of heat and potentially igniting creosote or other flammable materials inside the chimney.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. So a proper shroud is not just about aesthetics.
Right.
It's a safety feature.
Precisely. And that brings us to steps 5 and 6,
Okay.
which look at the chimney's support and assembly. Again, these are crucial for both safety and functionality.
Okay.
A poorly supported chimney can sag, lean, or even collapse, putting your home at risk.
And when it comes to assembly, even though it's prefabricated, there's still room for human error, right?
Absolutely. Even with factory-made components,
Yeah.
things can be installed incorrectly,
Right.
leading to leaks, blockages, or other performance issues. The inspection helps catch those errors before they become major problems.
So it's like having an expert double-check the work to make sure everything is up to snuff.
Exactly. Step 7, checking clearances,
Okay.
is another key element of fire prevention.
Okay.
Making sure there's enough space between the chimney and anything that could burn is crucial for preventing a house fire.
And we talked about how those clearance distances can vary depending on the chimney material.
Yes.
Why is that?
Different materials radiate heat differently.
Okay.
A metal chimney, for instance, gets much hotter than a masonry chimney. So it requires a larger clearance to prevent nearby materials from getting too hot and catching fire.
That makes sense. So it's not a one-size-fits-all rule when it comes to clearances. It depends on the specific setup of your chimney.
Right. And finally, we have step 8, checking the liner.
Okay.
This step is all about ensuring efficient and safe venting of those combustion byproducts.
We talked earlier about how a damaged liner can lead to creosote buildup.
Yes.
But what are some other consequences of a faulty liner?
A damaged liner can reduce the chimney's draft.
Okay.
Meaning it won't pull those harmful gases and smoke up and out as efficiently.
Right.
This can lead to smoke backing up into your house.
Oh, wow.
Which is not only unpleasant, but also a potential health hazard.
So a well-maintained liner is not just about preventing chimney fires. It's about ensuring good air quality.
Precise.
Inside your home.
It's about making sure your chimney is doing its job safely and effectively.
Right.
Protecting both your home and your health.
Step number 9 is all about liner sizing.
Yeah.
Seems pretty straightforward, right?
You would think.
But why is it so crucial?
Well, think of it this way.
Okay.
Your liner is the highway for those hot combustion gases, carrying them up and out of your home.
Okay.
And if that highway is too narrow, it creates a bottleneck, slowing down the flow.
Yeah.
And increasing the risk of dangerous buildup.
So it's not just about venting smoke. It's about doing it efficiently and safely.
Correct.
Now, steps 10 and 11 talk about the height and dimensions of the liner, as well as those pesky offsets, the bends in the liner. I imagine those can cause some problems too, right?
Absolutely. The height of your liner plays a crucial role in creating what's called draft.
Okay.
That's that upward flow of gases.
Yeah.
If the liner is too short, you risk poor venting, and those gases could back up into your home.
Right.
If it's too tall, you might lose efficiency, trying to force air through a straw that's way too long.
Yeah.
And those offsets, well, each bend creates resistance, slowing down the flow, too many offsets, and it's like trying to drive uphill the whole way.
Right.
Your chimney just can't do its job effectively.
I've heard horror stories about creosote buildup.
Oh, yeah.
Causing chimney fires.
It's a very real...
Is that something inspectors look for when checking the liner's height and offsets?
Absolutely. Creosote, that flammable residue from wood smoke, is a major concern.
Yeah.
A poorly designed liner, one with inadequate height or too many offsets, can trap creosote, increasing the risk of fire.
That's a good reminder to keep those chimneys clean.
For sure.
Okay. Step 12 focuses on sealing unused openings in the flue.
Right.
Why is that so important?
Well, it's all about safety and preventing leaks.
Okay.
Imagine, those harmful combustion gases escaping through cracks or gaps in your flue.
Right to the house.
Not only could they seep into your living space, but they could also cause structural damage over time.
That's definitely not something you want to mess with.
Yeah, no.
Does the NFPA 211 standard specify the types of materials that could be used for sealing?
It absolutely does. It's incredibly detailed to ensure those seals are durable, heat-resistant, and able to withstand the harsh conditions inside a chimney.
Speaking of safety, let's talk about the crown.
Sure.
That's the top of the chimney, right?
Correct. The very top.
Step 13 dives into crown construction.
Yeah.
What are the key things inspectors look for here?
Well, the crown acts like a shield protecting your chimney from the elements.
Okay.
Think of it like a waterproof hat for your chimney, keeping rain and snow from seeping in and causing damage. Inspectors will check that it's properly sloped, made of durable materials, and constructed in a way that prevents water from pooling.
So it's not just about keeping the rain out. It's also about directing water away from the chimney.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, step 14 gets a bit more technical. Thermal expansion. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. So chimneys, especially those made of masonry, are exposed to extreme temperatures.
Right.
As they heat up and cool down, the materials expand and contract.
It's like the chimney needs room to breathe.
Exactly.
That makes me think of bridges.
Yeah.
I remember reading that bridges have expansion joints to allow for those temperature changes.
Exactly. It's the same principle with chimneys.
Yeah.
Those materials need space to move without putting stress on the overall structure.
And that's where step 15 and 16 come, in flashing and cricket condition.
Yeah.
I'm guessing these elements are all about keeping things watertight.
For sure.
This is where a lot of homeowners probably get nervous because leaks can cause major damage.
They can.
Yeah.
So flashing that metal sheeting around the base of the chimney acts like a barrier, directing water away from the roof and preventing it from seeping into the house.
And the cricket, well, it's a small triangular structure built on the upslope side of the chimney, preventing water from pooling behind it.
Right.
Together, they work like a dynamic duo, protecting your home from the relentless assault of the elements.
On to steps 17 through 20.
Yeah.
Which covered the chimney connector.
Right.
The pipe that connects your appliance to the chimney. We're talking thickness, diameter, wall pass-through, and sizing.
Yeah.
I imagine each aspect is crucial for safety and efficiency.
You're right. Think of the chimney connector as the crucial link between your fireplace or wood stove and the chimney itself.
Okay.
It needs to be the right thickness to withstand the intense heat. The right diameter for smooth and efficient venting.
Okay.
And the wall pass-through must be correctly installed to prevent heat transfer to combustible materials in your walls.
So if the connector isn't up to snuff, it could create a serious fire hazard.
Absolutely. And that's why the NFPA 211 standard is so specific about these details. Outlining the acceptable materials and measurements.
All right.
It's all about ensuring consistency and safety across the board.
Okay. No.
Yeah. And of course, the connector needs to be the right size to match both the liner and the appliance.
Right.
Any mismatch can throw off the whole system, compromising both ventilation and safety.
Yeah, it's like a puzzle. All the pieces need to fit together perfectly.
It is.
Now, step 21 brings us to manifold sizing.
Oh, woo!
Manifolds, now, those are something I've always been a bit curious about.
Yeah.
What exactly do they do?
Imagine you have a fireplace and a furnace, both venting into the same chimney.
Okay.
The manifold acts like a traffic director, making sure the gases from each appliance are properly channeled into the flue.
Right.
It's all about maintaining smooth, efficient venting and preventing any backups or blockages.
So if the manifold isn't sized correctly, you could end up with, say, furnace exhaust backing up into your fireplace.
That's exactly right.
Wow.
And that's not only inefficient, it can be dangerous. Just like with the liner and connector, the manifold size needs to be right.
Yeah.
Not too small, not too large, to ensure everything is flowing smoothly and safely.
Okay. Last but certainly not least, for this section of our deep dive, is step 22, combustion air supply.
Right.
That sounds pretty crucial.
It is combustion, as you know, is the process of burning fuel.
Right.
And for that, you need a steady supply of fresh air.
Yeah.
Without enough combustion air, you can end up with incomplete burning, producing harmful byproducts like carbon monoxide and soot.
Right.
Plus, it can reduce heating efficiency, meaning you're wasting fuel and money.
So good ventilation is essential not just for removing those combustion gases, but also for ensuring they burn cleanly and efficiently in the first place.
Precisely.
Okay. So let's start with 8.15.4.4.23, which is all about the outside air intake. I got to admit, I never really thought about a fireplace needing, like, its own air supply.
Yeah, it might seem surprising, but just like we need oxygen to breathe, a fire needs fresh air to burn, efficiently and safely. If it doesn't get enough, you risk incomplete combustion, which can produce dangerous gases, like carbon monoxide.
So it's not just about keeping the flames going. It's about making sure those flames are burning clean.
Yeah, exactly. So during a level 2 inspection, they'll check that the air intake outside is clear, no obstructions, and that it's the right size to give enough air. They'll also be looking for any damage or, wear and tear that could cause problems.
Okay, makes sense. Let's move on to something a little messier, the ash dump. That's covered in 8.15.4.24. I mean, I know you got to clean out the ashes, but is a faulty ash dump really that big of a safety issue?
Oh, absolutely. A good working ash dump is super important for getting rid of those leftover embers and debris safely. If it's damaged or blocked, you could end up with a dangerous buildup of hot ashes in the firebox.
So it's not just about, keeping things neat and tidy. It's about preventing a potential fire.
Right, exactly. And that ash buildup can also insulate the firebox, making the temperature get way higher than it should. And that can damage the whole structure of your fireplace, and increase the risk of a chimney fire.
Yikes. Okay, definitely don't want to mess with that. All right, moving on to A.15.4.25, which is all about the timber framing under the hearth. This sounds serious.
It is. The standard is very clear. There should never be any timber framing right under the hearth. I mean, hearths get super hot, and if that heat touches wood framing, well, you can easily get a fire.
Yeah, makes sense. But I bet in older homes, they didn't always think about this when they built them.
Yeah, you're right. That's why a level 2 inspection is so important, especially for older houses. They'll be checking for, any signs of charring, damage, or if there's not enough space between the hearth and any wood framing.
So if you have an older home with a fireplace, you should definitely get a pro to inspect it, just in case there are hidden fire hazards.
Exactly. All right, now let's switch gears a bit and talk about something a little more technical. The relationship between the fireplace opening and the flue size, which is covered in A.435.4.26.
So we're talking about, making sure things are proportional, right?
Yeah, exactly. The fireplace opening needs to be the right size, in balance with the flue, to make sure the draft and the smoke removal are working properly.
Okay, I'm starting to get how it all connects. So the flue is basically the chimney, right?
Yep, that's it. It's the channel that takes the smoke and gases up and out of your house. If the flue is too small for the fireplace opening, it can't pull the smoke out effectively.
Right, so then the smoke fills the room instead of going up the chimney. Not exactly what we want from a cozy fire.
Definitely not. And the opposite's true, too. If the flue's too big, you can get too much draft, and the fire burns too fast, not efficiently. It's about finding that perfect balance, not too big, not too small, just right.
Right, makes sense. Speaking of size, let's go to A.15.4.27, which is about the size of the throat. Remind me, what exactly is the throat again?
Oh, right. So the throat is that narrow part between the firebox where the fire is and the smoke chamber above it. It might seem like a small detail, but its size is super important. It's like a valve, controlling how the smoke and hot gases flow up the chimney.
So if it's too narrow, it blocks the flow, and if it's too wide, you lose that control.
Exactly. A throat that's the right size stops downdrafts, makes sure the smoke goes up strong, and helps the fire burn consistently and efficiently. It's all about getting that balance of airflow right.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see how these different parts all work together. So let's move on to A.15.4.28, which is about smoke chamber geometry. Now, I'm not great with geometry, so break this down for me. What are we looking at here?
Basically, we're concerned with the angle and the height of the smoke chamber. The angle shouldn't be more than 45 degrees from vertical, and that helps direct the smoke up towards the flue. It's kind of like a ramp for the smoke, guiding it out.
So steeper angle, more efficient smoke flow up the chimney.
Yep, exactly. And the height of the smoke chamber matters too. If it's too tall, the smoke might cool down too fast, and then you get creosote buildup.
And creosote is that sticky, flammable stuff, right? The stuff that causes chimney fires.
That's it. It's a major fire hazard, so we want to minimize that buildup as much as possible.
Gotcha. Okay, let's move on to A.15.4.29, which is all about smoke chamber lining and parging. Now, you mentioned smooth surfaces being important, right?
You got it. The smoke chamber needs to have the right lining, a fire-resistant material, and then it needs to be parged, which basically means a smooth coat over the lining.
So the lining protects the masonry from the heat and all the stuff that comes from burning.
Yeah.
And the parging makes sure the creosote doesn't stick to the walls.
Exactly. The goal is to create a smooth surface that the creosote can't cling to, a surface that's not porous.
Okay, starting to make sense. All right, ready for A15.4 Sun 30. Let's talk about the smoke shelf.
All right, so the smoke shelf, it's a little feature that's often overlooked, but it's super important for preventing those downdrafts. Basically, it's a ledge inside the smoke chamber, and it acts like a barrier, redirecting any downward airflow back up.
So it's like a bouncer for the smoke, keeping it moving the right way.
Yeah, kinda. The smoke shelf helps make sure the smoke and gases flow upwards consistently, keeping your fireplace working well and, keeping your living room smoke-free.
That's pretty clever. Okay, let's talk about prefabricated fireplaces now. Starting with A.44.31, which says you got to use a listed prefabricated model. What does listed mean exactly?
Okay, so listed means that the fireplace has been tested and certified by, an independent safety testing organization like UL or CSA.
So it's like a seal of approval, saying the fireplace meets safety standards.
Exactly. They do a lot of testing to make sure it's built right, uses safe materials, and meets certain standards for, things like how well it burns and how it vents. It's a really important step in making sure a prefabricated fireplace is safe and reliable.
That makes me feel better about choosing a prefabricated fireplace. Okay, let's move on to A15.4.32, which is about masonry doors on prefabricated fireplaces. I'm guessing this is a don't do it situation.
Yeah, you got it. Putting masonry doors on a prefabricated fireplace is a big no-no.
Why is that?
Well, prefabricated fireplaces are designed to work with specific airflow and clearances, and adding those heavy masonry doors just messes that all up and can actually be dangerous.
So the masonry doors trap the heat, and that could damage the fireplace or even cause a fire.
Exactly. All that trapped heat puts too much stress on the parts of the fireplace, could lead to cracks, warping, even make the whole thing fall apart. You got to stick with doors that are made for your specific type of prefabricated fireplace.
All right, so we've covered a lot, but we're not quite done yet. Let's finish this first part with A-Town 15.4.33, which is all about the hearth extension and covering for prefabricated units. We talked about hearth extensions before, but what's different with prefabricated fireplaces?
The main difference is the installation. You see, with a masonry fireplace, the hearth extension is usually built as part of the whole structure. But with a prefabricated fireplace, the hearth extension might be part of the unit itself, or it might need to be built separately when you install it.
So got to check the manufacturer's instructions again to see what you need for your specific model.
Exactly. The instructions will tell you how big the hearth extension needs to be, what materials to use, and how to install it correctly. They might even recommend specific hearth extension products that are made to work with their fireplace model.
And just like with the masonry fireplaces, I'm guessing you still want to use materials like tile, stone, or brick,
Right.
For covering the hearth extension.
Yeah, you got it. These materials are great because they're durable, they resist fire, and they look good, so they're perfect for hearth extension coverings. Remember that hearth extension is your first line of defense against embers and heat that could damage your floor and, potentially start a fire.
Okay, so level 3. It's not your average checkup. What sets it apart?
Well, think of it this way. It's a full body scan versus just checking your blood pressure. A level 3 happens when there's suspected damage, a change in the fireplace's use, or any significant alteration. It's about getting a complete picture of your fireplace's health, even if it means getting a little invasive.
Invasive? You're not talking about fireplace surgery, are you?
Not quite surgery. But these inspections often involve cutting into walls or ceilings. It can be a bit surprising for homeowners, but trust me, there's a method to the madness.
I'm all ears and maybe a little nervous for my drywall.
Well, imagine this. You're an inspector, and you suspect that the fire stopping around the chimney isn't up to code, but it's hidden behind the drywall. How can you be sure without taking a peek?
So it's about getting visual access to stuff that you can't normally see, not just what's out in the open.
Precisely. And fire stopping is really critical. It's like the safety net preventing fire from spreading into the walls from the fireplace. Improper fire stopping is a major fire hazard.
Okay, that makes a lot more sense now. So invasive, but necessary. And how many of these checks are we talking about?
Well, NFPA 211 outlines 17 crucial checks for a level 3 inspection. We're talking, foundation to a chimney cap, covering every nook and cranny.
17. We better get started then. Let's walk through some of these, starting with fire stopping, since you mentioned it. What exactly is the inspector looking for?
Well, they're checking for approved non-combustible materials. These materials need to be tightly sealed around any openings where the chimney passes through walls, floors, ceilings. You can kind of think of it as a fortress wall blocking any escape route for heat and embers.
So it's not just about stuffing some insulation in there and calling it a day?
Nope. It's got to be done by the book. Imagine a tiny ember sneaking through a gap in the fire stopping. That's all it takes to start a house fire.
Okay, that's definitely something I want to make sure is done right in my house. What about debris? I wouldn't think that's a big concern for an indoor fireplace.
You'd be surprised. Think about those prefab fireplace units. If leaves, twigs, or construction debris accumulate on top, well, that's a ready-made fire starter.
So even something as simple as keeping the area around the fireplace tidy can be a safety measure.
Absolutely. Basic homeowner maintenance, but often overlooked. Now, moving on to the chase.
The chase.
That framed-in space around the chimney.
Ah, yes, the chase. What's the inspector checking there?
Well, clearances are key. There needs to be enough space between the chimney liner and the framing. This prevents heat transfer and potential ignition of the wood.
So it's like a buffer zone, keeping things cool and preventing a potential fire hazard.
Exactly. And speaking of keeping things safe, let's move down to the foundation.
Wait, the foundation. Why would a fireplace inspection involve the foundation?
Well, because a fireplace, especially a masonry one, it's incredibly heavy. Imagine it like a giant stone tower,
Yeah.
It needs a solid base to prevent shifting, cracking, or even collapsing.
So it's not just about having a foundation, it needs to be the right foundation.
You got it. The inspector's going to be checking that it's made of the right materials. think sturdy concrete or masonry, and that it's properly sized to handle the load.
And I'm guessing those footings have to go deep, too.
Absolutely. Especially in areas where the ground freezes in winter, those footings need to extend below the frost line to prevent shifting.
Right.
Remember, the ground expands and contracts with temperature changes, and you don't want your fireplace moving with it.
That makes sense. It's like building a house on stilts. Not a great idea in earthquake country. Speaking of ground conditions, does the soil type under the foundation matter, too?
It absolutely does.
So if someone's building on unstable ground, they might need to take extra steps to reinforce the foundation.
Exactly. The soil needs to be strong enough to support the weight of the fireplace and chimney. If the soil is too soft or unstable, it could lead to settling and structural problems down the line.
Okay, so we've covered fire stopping, debris, clearances in the chase, and the foundation. What's next on this inspection marathon?
Let's talk about the chimney liner itself. It needs space to breathe, so to speak.
Breathe. It's a metal tube. It's not a living thing.
Well, think of it this way. The liner expands and contracts with temperature changes. If it's crammed in too tightly, that movement can stress the surrounding structure.
So it's about allowing for a bit of wiggle room so the liner can do its job without causing damage.
Exactly. It's about ensuring that the system can function properly and safely. And speaking of safety, we can't forget about seismic requirements.
Yes. Those pesky earthquakes. What role do they play in fireplace inspections?
Well, in earthquake-prone areas, there are specific anchoring requirements for masonry chimneys. The goal is to prevent the chimney from becoming a toppling hazard during a tremor.
Toppling, you mean like falling over entirely?
It can happen, and you can imagine the damage that would cause. The inspector will be checking that the chimney is properly anchored to the structure at each floor and roof line.
Okay, that's one more reason why having a qualified, experienced inspector is so important. They know what to look for and understand the nuances of these codes.
Absolutely. Now, moving on to the structure itself, wall thickness. Whether it's a masonry chimney or a factory-built one, those walls need to be a specific thickness to withstand the heat and stress.
So it's about durability as well as safety.
Exactly. And the required thickness can vary depending on the type of fireplace and the materials used. For example, if you have an older masonry fireplace without a liner, those walls need to be seriously thick, like a foot of brick.
Wow, that's a lot of brick. Okay, we've talked about the chase clearances, but what about the space around the fireplace itself? Why is that so important?
Well, think about it. The area around the fireplace gets incredibly hot. Combustible materials too close to that heat source could easily ignite.
So it's like needing a buffer zone to keep things safe.
Exactly. And the code is very specific about these clearances. Wood beams, joists, studs, they all need to be a safe distance away. Think at least 2 inches from the front and sides of the fireplace and double that for the back.
So if I'm planning a remodel and want to add those built-ins around my fireplace, I need to be careful about those clearances.
Absolutely. And that's where those clearance reduction systems can come in handy. They use special materials and construction methods to essentially create a heat-resistant barrier.
That sounds like a clever workaround. But I'm guessing even with those systems, there are still minimum clearances that need to be met.
You got it. It's a balance between aesthetics and safety, and the code is quite specific about what's allowed. Now, while we're on the topic of clearances, let's move from the visible to the hidden, the smoke chamber.
Smoke chamber, what's that exactly?
Well, it's the area above the firebox where the smoke gathers before heading up the flue. You don't usually see it, but it's a critical part of the fireplace's operation. And just like everything else we've discussed, it needs to be constructed correctly to ensure safety and efficiency.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What kind of things is the inspector checking in the smoke chamber?
Well, for starters, the wall thickness. Just like the firebox, those walls need to withstand high temperatures, and repeated heating and cooling cycles.
So again, it's about durability and longevity as well as fire safety.
Precisely. A well-built smoke chamber will last for decades and help prevent potential problems down the line. And then there are the clearances.
Clearances in the smoke chamber, what are those all about?
Just like with the fireplace itself, there needs to be enough space for the smoke to flow freely. If things are too tight or there are obstructions, it can disrupt the drafting and send smoke billowing back into your room.
So that explains why my fireplace sometimes gets smoky. I'm guessing NFPA 211 lays out specific clearance requirements for the smoke chamber.
You bet. For example, the depth of the smoke chamber shouldn't be greater than the depth of the firebox. It's all about balance and creating a system that works efficiently and safely.
Wow, we've already covered a lot of ground. fire stopping, debris, clearances, foundations, soil, the liner, seismic requirements, wall thickness, and now we're talking about the hidden world of the smoke chamber. And we're only like halfway through the 17 checks.
That's right. We're just getting warmed up. Let's start with clearances, step 13 in our little roadmap here.
Okay.
These are critical because we're talking about preventing a fire hazard, plain and simple.
Yeah.
Imagine your gorgeous wood mantle getting too hot from the fireplace simply because it wasn't installed far enough away.
Right. You think about aesthetics when you're decorating, not necessarily like, oh, how far away does this need to be so it doesn't like burst into flames?
Exactly.
So how do inspectors know what the right clearance should be? Is there like a universal measurement or?
Well, NFPA 211 gives us the overall framework, but the specific clearances are set by the manufacturer for each model.
Oh, yeah.
Our job is to make sure whoever installed that fireplace actually followed those guidelines.
So it's kind of like a double check system?
Yeah, it's a double check for safety.
Yeah, no cutting corners even if it looks fine. So this whole idea of following manufacturer specs makes me think about, there's a story in Annex A about masonry fireplaces and how using those fancy like airtight doors can actually cause overheating if the fireplace wasn't built for that kind of efficiency.
Exactly. It reinforces why we can't just wing it with fireplaces, whether factory-built or traditional masonry. The design and installation have to work together for safety.
Wow, it's more complicated than people realize.
For sure.
Okay, so on to step 14, which is about the factory-built fireplace's hearth strip.
Okay.
What is this strip?
All right, so picture this embers popping out of your fireplace and landing right on your beautiful hardwood floor.
Oh, no.
Yeah, that's a recipe for disaster, and that's where the hearth strip comes in. It acts as a barrier, a little fire break between the firebox and your floor.
And the inspection guide mentioned that they might have to like lift up the hearth to check this thing.
You're absolutely right. It can be a bit of a surprise, but trust me, it's essential. We need to make sure that strip is properly installed, not damaged or worn down a small inconvenience for some serious peace of mind.
I'll keep that in mind if I ever get a level 3 inspection.
Yeah, good idea.
It's all starting to make sense now.
Good.
So we've covered clearances and the hidden hearth strip.
Right.
What is next on our fireplace safety checklist?
Let's talk about step 15, making sure that prefabricated fireplace is rock solid, literally.
Okay, so by prefab, we just mean factory built.
Yeah.
But why is stability so important?
Imagine the whole unit shifting or moving. Not only could that damage your house, but it could also create gaps where dangerous gases could escape. Not a scenario you want to encounter.
Oh man, now I'm scared.
Yeah, it's important. So inspectors are looking for any signs of movement settling, anything that could compromise the fireplace's structure.
Gotcha. So like gaps, tilting, anything that's like, this doesn't look like it should be like this.
Exactly. We're looking for those telltale signs, gaps, tilting, anything that suggests the fireplace isn't as stable as it should be. A solid foundation means a safer fireplace, and that's what we're after.
Wow, it's amazing how much goes into making sure these things are safe.
Yeah.
I've only covered 3 steps. I'm like, whoa.
It's a lot.
Yeah. What's next?
Let's move on to step 16, which gets into the connection between the firebox and the liner. Now, this is where things get really interesting because we're talking about what's happening inside the fireplace.
Okay, break it down for me. What's the liner and why is this connection so important?
Think of the liner as the chimney's inner layer, the channel where all the smoke and gases travel up and out of your house. This liner needs to be tightly connected to the firebox where the fire actually burns. Any leaks or gaps here could spell trouble.
Oh, so if it's not sealed properly, smoke and potentially harmful gases could like leak into my house instead of going up the chimney.
You got it. And remember that story about deterioration we mentioned earlier? A bad connection here can contribute to that, making your fireplace less efficient and potentially more dangerous over time.
It's like a domino effect. One weak link can impact everything else.
Exactly.
Okay, so what is the final step in this segment of our deep dive?
Step 17 brings us to something you might be more familiar with. The hearth extension. That's the non-combustible area in front of your fireplace, often made of tile or stone.
Okay, so we talked about the hearth strip, so what's the difference?
All right.
And why does the guide mention U values?
Good question.
That sounds more like building science than fireplace safety.
You're right. U values are all about how well a material resists heat transfer. And that's important for hearth extensions because they're not just decorative, they're another layer of protection to prevent embers from rolling out and potentially starting a fire. The size of the extension often depends on how big your fireplace opening is, and the U value of the material helps determine if it's actually providing enough insulation.
So it's about safety and efficiency.
Yeah.
That's cool. I like that.
It's a good example of how these inspections go beyond just checking for obvious problems.
Yeah, I'm already thinking about things differently.
Yeah.
We've covered a lot of ground, but I'm sure there's even more to unpack.
Oh, yeah, there's always more. Yeah, it's fascinating how something like a hearth extension can have such a big impact on both safety and energy efficiency. It really highlights the importance of getting those details right.
It's like they say, the devil is in the details, but in this case, it's more like safety is in the details.
Right.
So for our listener out there who's maybe thinking about getting a level 3 inspection, what should they keep in mind about these hearth extensions and U values?
That's a great question. Um, Firstly, make sure the inspector knows their stuff about U values and how they relate to the materials used in the hearth extension. They should be checking that everything meets the necessary insulation standards. And as a homeowner, don't be afraid to ask questions. This is your chance to learn about the specific materials used in your fireplace and how they affect its performance.
Yeah, knowledge is power. The more you understand, the better equipped you are to make informed decisions about your home safety.
Okay, so let's do a quick recap.
Okay.
We've covered clearances. The hidden hearth strip, the stability of the whole unit, that crucial connection between the firebox and liner, and now hearth extensions with their sneaky U values. It's amazing how many factors contribute to a safe and efficient fireplace.
It really is. And remember, we're just focusing on the fireplace itself. A level 3 inspection also takes a close look at the entire system, the chimney, the flue liner, the venting. Everything needs to be working in harmony.
So even though we're getting granular here, it's all part of a bigger picture. It's like an ecosystem, right?
Exactly. Each component plays a role, and a thorough inspection ensures that the entire system is functioning as it should be. Think of it like a checkup for your fireplace. A little preventative care goes a long way.
Yeah, it sounds like a level 3 inspection is worth its weight in gold for the peace of mind it provides. I couldn't agree more, especially if you're buying or selling a house or if you've had any work done on your fireplace. A level 3 inspection can uncover any hidden issues and give you that assurance that everything is up to code.
Yeah, it's like a clean bill of health for your fireplace, and knowing you and your family are safe and sound. We've talked a lot about the technical side of things, but what about the human element?
Right.
What role does the inspector play beyond just checking boxes and following the guidelines?
That's a crucial point. A good inspector isn't just a code enforcer, they're an educator. They should be able to explain their findings to the homeowner in a way that's clear and understandable, highlighting any areas of concern and suggesting the best course of action. It's about empowering homeowners with the knowledge they need to make smart decisions about their fireplace.
So it's a collaborative process. It's not just about passing or failing an inspection. It's about understanding what's going on and working together to ensure safety.
Absolutely. A successful inspection should leave the homeowner feeling informed and confident, not intimidated or overwhelmed.
It seems like finding the right inspector is just as important as the inspection itself. What advice would you give to someone who's looking for a qualified inspector?
Don't be afraid to ask around for recommendations, talk to friends, neighbors, contractors, anyone who's had experience with fireplace inspections. Check online reviews, look for certifications and credentials, and most importantly, make sure you feel comfortable with the inspector's communication style. You want someone who's knowledgeable and approachable, someone you feel good about inviting into your home.
That makes a lot of sense. It's a big decision, and you want to make sure you have the right person for the job. Well, this whole deep dive has been incredibly enlightening. I feel like I've learned so much about fireplace safety, things I never even considered before.
And we've only just scratched the surface. There's always more to learn when it comes to keeping our homes safe and sound.
You're right. We've been laser focused on fireplaces, but I think there's a bigger takeaway here. Remember all that talk about U values and how they relate to heat transfer?
I see where you're going with this. Let's broaden the scope a bit.
Exactly why. Stop at the fireplace. Think about your entire house.
Okay.
What other areas could benefit from this kind of heat loss analysis?
That's a fantastic point. There's a whole new way of thinking about energy efficiency and how we can make our homes more comfortable and sustainable.
From windows and doors to insulation and roofing, U values can reveal a lot about where your home is losing heat and where you might be wasting energy and money. It's like a treasure map for energy savings.
And the best part is once you understand these principles, you can start making informed decisions about upgrades and renovations that will not only improve your home's comfort, but also reduce your environmental impact.
So we're challenging our listeners to go beyond the fireplace and explore the world of U values in their own homes. It's a fascinating journey, and you won't be surprised by what you discover.
Happy exploring.
Okay, so we've been spelunking into the world of level 3 fireplace inspections.
Right.
And really focusing on, factory-built fireplaces and those key steps that we find in NFPA 211 standard.
It's been quite a journey, hasn't it? We've gone from those essential clearances all the way to understanding how U values play a role in hearth extensions.
Yeah.
Hopefully our listeners are starting to see just how thorough these inspections really are.
Yeah, it's like we've peeled back the layers of the fireplace and revealed all those intricate details that most people I don't think even think about.
Yeah, and you know what? Sometimes peeling back those layers can reveal a few surprises, maybe even some issues that need addressing.
Oh, yeah.
But that's the whole point, right?
Right.
It's better to catch those problems early on than to face the potential consequences down the line.
Totally. It's all about being proactive, right?
Yeah.
Taking those preventative measures to ensure a safe and enjoyable fireplace experience.
For sure.
Which brings us to another important point, I think, which is the role of the inspector.
Right.
They're not just there to check boxes and enforce codes, are they?
You hit the nail on the head. A truly good inspector is also an educator.
Hmm.
They should be able to walk the homeowner through their findings, explaining everything in a way that's clear and understandable. It's about empowering people with the knowledge they need to make informed decisions about their fireplace's safety and maintenance.
So it's more of a collaborative process.
Absolutely.
Than just a pass or fail kind of situation.
Precisely. A successful inspection should leave the homeowner feeling confident and informed, not overwhelmed or intimidated by all the technical jargon. It's about working together to create a safe and comfortable home environment.
Well said. Well, we have reached the end of our deep dive into level 3 fireplace inspections.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey into the world of fireplace safety and gained some valuable insights along the way. Remember, knowledge is power, and a well-informed homeowner is a safer homeowner.
So stay curious, ask questions, and never underestimate the importance of a properly maintained fireplace from all of us here at The Deep Dive. Thanks for listening, and stay safe out there.